I guess this is, my talk is kind of a summing up of some of the things that I've been thinking about over the past couple of weeks here. Particularly happy and fruitful kind of mathematical and philosophical hole that have disappeared down. So this is kind of less talk and more kind of performance essay, I suppose, from what's been going on. So first of all, a little bit about me. So I am I describe myself as a lapsed mathematician and a self-taught technologist. So neither artist, scientist, technologist, kind of all or none of the above, depending on the context. So I worked in various kind of tech startups, kind of digital agencies, sort of various kind of things over the years, but primarily as a kind of software and hardware engineer. But then in 2009, took a bit of a detour, a bit of a tangent, and went ahead and set up this place. So this is my venue, Mad Lab in Manchester. This is a community space for science, technology and art. We've been around since 2009, and it's actually been my full-time job for the past couple of years, which has been particularly excellent. So the kinds of things that we do at Mad Lab, we have kind of three definitions of Mad Lab, depending on who we're talking to. So community space for science, technology and art. If we're asking for money from people, we describe ourselves as a grassroots innovation hub, because that sounds kind of sexy. But my favourite description is one that was given to us by the Asa Calow, which is a feral research institution, which I think is pretty much gets it. So the kinds of things that happen, like on the day-to-day, we hold about 70 different community meetups that happen every month. There's normally like 2 or 3 things happening a night, an evening. So that's everything from Manchester Jewelers Network, filmmaking, photography, writers groups, reading groups, various computer programming, electronics, robotics, all kinds of different things. Super active. It's really fun sort of active space to be in. We also hold a lot of hack events as well. So we're holding one just this week on like body technology, and then we also have a particularly enjoyable sort of art, science, and technology program as well. So the kinds of things we've been doing on this kind of program over the past while. So things like this. This is a pop-up biotech lab. It's about a year and a half ago. This was about the time that DIY Bio was getting a really bad reputation for sort of shadowy hackers working in the dark, building terrifying things. So we set up a speakeasy-style shadowy lab working in the dark, building terrifying things, which is particularly enjoyable. We had, I think just here we have the inedible lab, so don't eat any of that. Over the other side we had an edible lab as well. So it turns out that actually, hate to tell you California, but most people don't have a local space program. So about a year ago we set up the Manchester Space Program. Nobody else had bagged it, which was a lot of fun. It turns out that when you state your intention, all kinds of interesting people kind of pop out of the woodwork. So it's everything from like sort of families and teachers through to retired satellite engineers, kind of all kinds of people. Really good fun. And current project is building a 25-gram pico satellite that you can attach to a latex little small foil balloon and send to Russia. And then, I guess kind of more recently, the thing that I've literally just come from is we've been running this art and technology, what we call the Creative Practice Accelerator Program. So we've been working with a dozen artist technologists to get them to a point where they're making a living from their work. And so coming directly from that to here. Means that I have a very deep-rooted appreciation of what it's like to wrangle a large group of difficult artists. So hat tip to Margot and Elizabeth for the team for putting up with this. And that kind of leads me on to what I've been doing here. So I guess the reason I was here was so at the tail end of last year, I went to the NUCFI conference, such the National Academies Futures Initiatives Conference. It's an art science conference just down the road in Irvine. It was kind of, I would describe it as half conference, half feed dream. They kind of threw about 150 artists and scientists together, and then over the course of 2 days, put them into groups, put us all into groups, and then gave us kind of various sort of challenges to come up with sort of interesting kind of art science ideas from. I was in seed group D, and our task was restoring physical intuition, and we changed that to extending physical intuition because we thought that was a bit more kind of future. And so off the back of that, we came up with this, the tools of unknown purpose. Then applied for NUCFI funding with my colleague, Professor Jim Crutchfield from UC Davis. I don't think he's here just yet, but he'll be around later on. And then it kind of mutated into the Institute of Unknown Purpose. So you know, we've already sort of scaled up in ambition. So the Institute of Unknown Purpose, kind of the idea behind it is very much this kind of this sort of a new variety of public research institution. So very much one that kind of treats science as spectacle, one where we can kind of explore the outer reaches of kind of science, philosophy, kind of maths, sort of the really kind of interesting stuff that's happening at the moment, and particularly kind of exploring the kind of boundaries where everything gets really weird and kind of science fiction and science fact start to really cross over. So kind of in the shortest version we've come up with, it's a centre for the slimly improbable. So fishing around, we're like, okay, so there's, you know, there must be some kind of precedence for these kinds of things. And sure enough, good friend Simon Werrett, who's a history of science lecturer at UCL, pointed me in the direction of this guy. Here we go. So yes, the Banu Musa, the brothers Banu Musa. So in 850 AD in Persia, the brothers were part of something called the House of Wisdom, which was the sort of the foremost kind of scientific institution of its day. Absolutely incredible. They invented things like valves, float valves, windmills, kind of all kinds of things. But in the 9th century, and you see these three brothers at the House of Wisdom that came up with these kind of incredible kind of devices. So this is a lamp which does it releases wick, so it's a sort of a self-releasing kind of self-wicking lamp that they designed. But one of the kind of key sort of features was that one of the things they were really keen to do was that at the time, kind of engineering was seen as a lowly art. It's, you know, sort of something that people who work with their hands did, and not as good as the noble art of philosophy. And so what they wanted to do is kind of create these sort of interesting kind of devices that would make philosophers look at them and go like, damn it, I can't work out how you did that. So they brought out this book called the Kitab al-Khayal, which is translated into English as the Book of Ingenious Devices. And it had things like it was a water jug that would pour wine out of one side and water out of the other, and these sorts of things. Very, very cool. Then fast forwarding a little bit, we come to this guy. This is Gottfried Leibniz, Wilhelm Gottfried Leibniz. So he is an incredible sort of polymath of his day, kind of sort of scientist, philosopher. Did a lot of kind of fundamental work on sort of metaphysics and logic, and a lot of kind of sort of mathematical theorem, which still kind of applies today. Sort of incredible, kind of very, very active character. Got into a lot of trouble because he used to do a lot of going back and redoctoring papers that he'd already released, which kind of really confused people and wasn't really seen as the thing to do either then or now at the scientific establishment. But one of the particularly excellent things that he did was in 1695, he wrote something called A Funny Thought, Une drôle pensée. And in it, he laid out what his ideal research institution would look like. And the list is several hundred items long. But some of the kind of key ones were things like horse ballet, gambling, sort of anatomical displays, fire-breathing machines, a small man that told the weather, satirical plays, all kinds of stuff, and sort of mixed in with kind of sort of the science of the day as well. It's kind of very much he very much kind of had this sort of idea of kind of science as spectacle. which is particularly excellent. And this also led to, he was kind of partially responsible for the setting of the Museumsinsel in Berlin, so it's Museum Island, where a lot of the kind of the main sort of long-standing institutions sit. So yeah, just an utterly brilliant character. So moving on to the present day, another kind of point of another kind of sort of point of inspiration for us was Museum of Jurassic Technology, just down the road in Los Angeles, set up in 1988. And one of the kind of fun things about it is that if you look at TripAdvisor, it's either the best museum or the worst museum in the world. And this is the kind of an example of the sort of thing which they have at the Museum of Jurassic Technology. And they've actually got a description just here. So this is one of their, this is an almond stone, a fruit stone carving, which they have on display. The full description: the front is carved with a Flemish landscape in which is seated a bearded man wearing a beretta, a long tunic of classical character, and thick-soled shoes. He is seated with a viol held between his knees while he tunes one of the strings. In the distance are representations of animals, including a lion, a bear, an elephant ridden by a monkey, a boar, a dog, donkey, a stag, a camel, a horse, a bull, a bird, a goat, a lynx, and a group of rabbits. The latter under a branch on which sit an owl, another bird, and a squirrel. On the back is shown an unusually grim crucifixion with a soldier on horseback, Longinus piercing Christ's side with a lance. The cross is surmounted by a titulus, inscribed INRI, implicated ground. So you can probably tell from that that the Museum of Jurassic Technology is kind of it's sort of brilliant because they kind of play fast and loose with kind of what constitutes kind of science fiction and science fact. So this is kind of sort of point of inspiration. We're kind of going, okay, this is absolutely fantastic. It kind of draws you in. It creates a sense of wonder. So where on earth? What kind of sort of topics? What kind of themes might we kind of explore as sort of present day themes? And that led me to, fortunately, this guy. So this is Elon Musk from Tesla and SpaceX. So fortunately, Elon Musk kind of sort of did it for me. It was just fantastic. When a couple of weeks ago at a conference, he announced that there was a 1 in a billion chance that we're living in a base reality. We're most likely living inside a computer simulation. Yeah, thank you, Elon. That's fantastic. This is precisely where we need to be. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. So you kind of like sort of look at it and you kind of sort of first thought is like, you're right, Elon, you're working a bit too hard. But then you kind of go like, okay, well, he's obviously a really bright guy, so so what's behind this? Let's kind of dig down into this. And the roads lead to this guy, who's absolutely fantastic. So this is Nick Bostrom, he's a professor of philosophy at Oxford University. In 2003, he wrote an academic paper published in the Philosophical Quarterly entitled "Are You Living Inside a Computer Simulation?" And he came to the conclusion in that paper that there's a not 100% likelihood that there's a possibility that we do indeed live inside a computer simulation. Yeah, like that's absolutely fantastic. That's brilliant. And it turns out that actually Nick Bostrom is also is just kind of just a brilliant font of excellent ideas. So whether it's human biological augmentation, or indeed more recently, his most recent book was this. So he wrote a book about sort of artificial superintelligence. So this idea that we kind of create a machine-made superintelligence and kind of what that might mean for kind of humanity. And this is an absolutely superb. Just when you start kind of digging down into it, it's particularly brilliant. And again, kind of following this sort of very kind of like logical path, the way he kind of constructs his arguments is very much in a kind of sort of logical kind of fashion. It's really, really, really fascinating stuff. Regardless of whether you kind of follow whether you buy into the whole description or not. But as much as anything, it kind of gives you loads of just excellent ideas. So it's going to, whether it's the intelligence explosion where we might accidentally bring this thing into being, and then depending on the rules we've given it, it's going to like dismantle the entire known universe and turn it into paper clips if we get it wrong. Also, it kind of introduces things like the cosmic endowment, which is just a superb phrase, it's particularly enjoyable. Yeah, and then it's also kind of influenced various people like Stephen Russell at Stanford and Stephen Hawking as well. Who's then, when Elon Musk says that AI is more dangerous than nukes, this is the book that he's then referring back to. So yeah, particularly enjoyable. And so that kind of leads me to sort of where kind of the particularly sort of enjoyable and fruitful hole that sort of disappeared down over the past couple of weeks. So artificial and superintelligence over here, artificial intelligence over here, which is there are some really just incredible. This at the moment is moving at an incredible pace. After several decades of not really moving a great deal, there's now some really, really interesting stuff happening here, particularly around deep learning. So I've been both reading this and doing this. So I've been going to teach myself sort of how to kind of build things out of AI. And if you're interested, I can kind of show you sort of some of the things that kind of working a little bit later on. And in particular, so coming back to the kind of so ideas. Around these sorts of things and how might, what might the Institute of Unknown Purpose do in relation to these sorts of bits. So I started kind of throwing out some, what I hope might perhaps be enjoyable ideas. So one of the things around the artificial superintelligence, one of the kind of ideas that was thrown out into the world a couple of years ago was something called Rocco's basilisk, which is this idea that you could, it's kind of a variation on the two-box problem, where in box A you get to build a malevolent superintelligence, and in box B you're either all right or you didn't help build a superintelligence and you're submitted to endless torture, which is just absolutely fantastic. It was kind of dismissed out of hand by the philosophers and the kind of the logic people, but it's just such a superbly villainous idea that it's sort of stuck, particularly kind of enjoyable route to go down. So one of the possible ideas, we're going to set up a sort of a Bond Spectre style organisation called Basilisk, and do things like, villainous coding lessons or something, so you can unleash things in Minecraft, have everybody wearing jumpsuits in a very James Bond way. Some of the other kind of ideas we're thinking about, so on the basis that we kind of invoke a superintelligence, and we somehow manage to persuade it not to kill us, what does culture look like for superintelligence? So things like, it's not going to enjoy the same things as us, but what's that going to look like? So, things like maybe femtosecond data poetry might be a thing. And in particular, if the aim is to then build a friendly AI, then what's more friendly than your local neighbourhood bartender? So maybe some kind of local neighbourhood bartender superintelligence might be quite a good idea. And be able to do things like you walk in and go, without knowing you goes like, hey Bob, I've got that drink you like. Fantastic. So I kind of started going down the route of trying to train an artificial intelligence by feeding all of the scripts of Cheers into it, but it turns out it doesn't really understand context particularly well, so that doesn't work too well. But nonetheless, sort of using kind of AI in this sort of context, you might find out you might make some sort of interesting kind of inferences, perhaps you might be able to kind of prove scientifically that, people that wear patterned shirts tend to drink rum. And people who wear navy like bourbon, these sorts of things. So that's kind of pretty much a kind of a run through the sort of the happy hole has been down for the past couple of weeks, hiding from artists in Manchester. Please keep in touch. If you're interested in the Institute of Unknown Purpose, we are going to do there's going to be a physical pop-up, probably over at Davis, because I've been working with Professor Jim Crutchfield in the not too distant future. And we'll also be, we're slowly building up a list of people who have some potential interest in the Institute. And if you have any questions about running a tech community space in Manchester, then give me a shout as well. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks.